If you've got a 3rd Gen F body, QA1 is moving these cars beyond mullets and white snake cassettes.
Aw, beyond mullets?
Hi, I'm Damian Braves with QA1, here with Trevor to talk about our new 3rd Gen product offering in our QA1 R&D Center. Trevor, what have we got going on today?
Yeah, as you can see here, we got a lot of parts on display. Really, we've revamped the entire 3rd Gen product offering. Make sure we've got a full vehicle solution for the 3rd Gens. So really excited to showcase these products. I don't know if you've ever shopped for 3rd Gen parts before, but there's a lot of complexities and nuances with the system in terms of suspension that make it a little tough to outfit the car. You know, you've got various compatibility issues and some weak points in the system. Really make it a complex product line to outfit with aftermarket parts. But we really wanted to simplify the process here and just make a really easy to purchase system and address a lot of those concerns.
Yeah, let's break it down and see what we're looking at.
Yeah, let's start on the front end parts here. All right, let's take a more in-depth look at all of these parts as a whole here and talk about some of the details and what these have to offer here. So starting with the front end and working back, looking at the main front end system here, Damian, I see at the heart of it is this tubular K-member. Run through some features and benefits of what that has to offer.
Yeah, so we've got a new K-member, bolts in place with the factory one. Still does retain the factory steering, so there's no steering linkage to mess around with on this. But with the updated K-member, we've got interchangeable engine mounts incorporated into this, so it'll work with your stock small block, or if you're doing an LS or LT swap, we have interchangeable mounts as well. So even if that's not in the cards right now, it is definitely an option down the road without having to use adapter plates or brackets or something like that. Moving out from there, we've got a couple different options for supporting the car. We've got a spring slider here that's going to function very similar to a weight jack and keep that inboard spring and allow you your ride height adjustment range. And that's going to work in conjunction with our struts and caster camber plates, or there is also the option to run a coilover strut and get rid of that inboard spring slider. So kind of depends on where you're looking to go with the car and what the goals are.
Yes, Damian, you mentioned the ability to run a coilover strut or an inboard spring slider like you see here. Definitely some advantages to both to be mindful of. If you're looking for a handling intensive setup and want to run really heavy spring rates, keep the spring package inboard so you can run a wide wheel and tire combination and get the most negative camber. Definitely would recommend going with the inboard spring slider. However, for like a drag application, you want to trim out some weight, keep things simplified, then we do have that coilover strut option, which will work great in those aspects. Now I see the spring sliders mounted to this lower control arm, but we do have another control arm configuration available. Can you go into depth on the control arm options?
Sure. So this is our 2.0 series control arms, and we've been offering these for a lot of other GM platforms, A bodies, G bodies for a number of years, and have updated the 3rd Gen design to use the same arm. So we've got the stamped spring pocket, the integrated low friction ball joint housing, low friction bushings here. So we've got a strong lightweight design and we've minimized friction as much as possible. We do also offer a drag race version where we've eliminated the stamped pocket to take as much weight out as we can and still keeping those low friction rebuildable ball joints and the low friction bushings as well.
Nice, yeah, good options for everyone is the main takeaway there. In addition to that, we've got some additional front end parts here that stiffen up the chassis. You mind covering these parts here?
Sure. So starting at the top, we've got a strut tower brace that works in conjunction with our aluminum caster camber plates. Moving down from there, we've got a steering brace, or a lot of people are familiar with that as a Wonder Bar. So that's a great option if you've got a Firebird or an early Camaro that didn't come with one. And then we've got an updated 1 3/8" diameter sway bar as well. And from there, then we jump into our bump steer kits. So bolt-in bump steer kits.
So that's great to hear how well-rounded of a system is offered by QA1 on the front end. I think from there we should transition rearward. We've got a few components that kind of go in the middle of the car and definitely a lot more in the back. So with that, let's take a look at those. All right, now to give the viewer just a reference where we're at, we're kind of at the central point of the vehicle here. And if you're familiar with the 3rd gen, you know that it's a unibody car. So we've got 2 subframes, one at the front, one at the back, of course. But looks like, Damien, we've got something in between those.
So we've got our bolt-in subframe connectors. These are tying into the factory frame rail here, and then also run along the rocker panel. These are designed to work with inside the frame exhaust or outside the frame exhaust. So shouldn't have any problems getting these things bolted on, or for those that do want to weld them, grind the powder coat off and weld them on.
Nice.
Moving in from there, we've got our torque arm cross member here. This is going to bolt in place of the factory transmission cross member, and we do have multiple different transmission cross members available to work with engine swaps. So whether it's your factory 700R4 or you're updating to a T56, 4L80, something like that, we've got you covered on that. And then the drive shaft loop to go along with those different transmissions. And that's going to be NHRA compliant to keep you within 6 inches of the U-joint. So where it really gets interesting here is the torque arm itself. That's bolting directly to the cross member, and we're eliminating the weak factory mount on the transmission tail housing. You start throwing too much torque at those transmission tail housings and they tend to just break off. So
yeah, and in addition to relocating it on that cross member, it really looks like this is quite a bit of a beefed up torque arm here in place. Yeah, the strength of that just
this is a scout design. We've engineered this to handle 1,000 pound-feet of torque. So it's going to take as much power as you want to throw at it and be able to hook up. So moving to the back, we've got a couple different rear axle mounts as well. So the factory 9 and 10 bolts in these cars aren't the best at taking that power either. We've got updated torque arm mounts for the rear axle as well that'll work with the factory housings as well as most aftermarket housings.
Yeah, and those 9 and 10 bolts, not known for being the most robust out of the factory, so really nice to have that as an option to work with some beefier housing options, as well as, of course, being able to run a different aftermarket transmission and relocate that torque arm off the tail housing. So really, it seems like this kit makes driveline swaps a breeze. I mean, you touched on the front end part of the engine swap mounts on the K-member, but in addition to that, you know, these rear parts, the various transmission cross members, as well as the various differential brackets really make upgrading that drive line and adding power to these cars a lot easier.
Yeah, really bringing the cars up to the modern power levels that we see being transplanted into other vehicles.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and then moving back from there, looks like we got some adjustable trailing arms, as well as adjustable panhard bars, some adjustment on the coilovers. So
yeah, keeping with the theme of replacing the factory axle to go with more power, we've updated our upper and lower mounting brackets on our coilover kits to better work with those aftermarket housings as well as the factory ones. Adjustable lower trailing arms, so you can make sure that you're getting the wheels centered in the wheel opening when you're running that larger diameter wheel and tire package. We've got our adjustable panhard bar in the car, so on-car adjustability with right and left-hand threads so you can get everything centered up. Clearance does tend to get pretty tight when you're running wide tires on the back of these cars, and having that axle centered up is going to help maximize that tire clearance.
Definitely.
And then an updated rear sway bar as well. So it still clamps onto the axle tube and mounts in the factory location, but added just a little bit more clearance to work with those aftermarket housings.
Nice. Yeah, and when you speak of adjustability here, I noticed right away, especially if you've shopped for other third-gen components before, a lot of times it's an upgrade to have that double adjustability, that on-car adjustability. So
Sure.
We're including it here with the panhard bar, the trailing arms, the pinion adjust for the torque arm. So that convenience of on-car adjustability is fantastic. And then, yeah, pair that with the adjustment on the coilovers, you can really fine-tune your ride height and get the rear of your car very dialed in. All All right, so we've covered a lot of parts today here, as you can see, and I really like the fact that we've got just about every suspension part you'd ever need for your 3rd gen. The quality of the parts really are outstanding, and I really love the fact that you can swap in different drive lines, have parts that allow you to add a lot more power to the car, update to a more modern engine, and make a ton of suspension improvements in the process. So, it is an overwhelming amount of parts to some degree, and I know that can be complex, but we've got full vehicle solutions as well as to all these individual components. So just know that you can buy these in a predetermined package, and if you want to outline the handling and drag kits that we have, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, we've put together 3 different handling packages for these cars. Our level 1, essentially it's going to get your car down, and it's going to give you all of the components that you need to make the adjustments on a lowered car and also help improve the handling. Level 2, we get into the rest of the tubular components on it with the subframe connectors and really giving you the complete package with updated spring rates and adjustability in the shocks and struts for that intended application. And then level 3 builds on that with a little bit firmer spring and more tunability in the shocks. Jumping over to the drag side, our level 1, it's going to work really well for your street strip car where you're still driving this thing to the track and making passes, driving it back home. So it gives you plenty of tunability for that and still gives you the ability to lower the car down. Level 2, we're going to move into more of the tubular suspension parts and really get you to the point where you're going to have the maximum amount of tunability that you're going to be able to put through the stock chassis on the car. So this is really the limit of how far you're going to be able to take one of these cars before you jump to a full tube chassis race car.
Nice. Yeah, those predetermined kits are so beneficial. They really instill a lot of confidence when there is so many different components that can be added and some compatibility concerns with the components out there. So having those parts that work together and really perform as intended really helps, when you're buying, making sure that everything works and performs as intended. It's great to see. So glad that we're offering that. And as always, if you still have any questions, you can reach out to our tech team. They're glad to take your calls and help you answer those questions. But overall, we're really excited to launch the 3rd gen of the past into a high-performing 3rd gen of the future. And with that, we hope you go drive it.